It's white girl and white girl crime. White girl and white girl crime is more often than not internalized misogyny. Am I wrong? Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. My name's Kira. Subscribe if you're new, and without further ado, let's get into today's video. So today I wanted to talk about Chugi. The new term, it has swept the internet. Well, technically, I guess it was created in 2013, but it's become relevant now. Nope, I don't know if anybody really heard of it before that. So if you don't know what Chugi is, Chugi, the definition of Chugi is someone who is out of date or trying too hard. And when I first came across this term, it was a while ago, actually on TikTok. I feel like the girl's name is Victoria. I'm not sure, but she's a copywriter in Los Angeles. She's a young young woman coined this term, I guess, and propelled it into its, now relevance and usage in media. And she made a TikTok, I think it's deleted, actually. Her TikTok was saying like, this is the word you guys are looking for when you're trying to describe people like this. And it was just a bunch of images of like, things women like, whatever. And then the other day I saw Rod, who's like a really popular TikToker, explain Chugi. And again, it was just things women like. And then he made a men's version because he got called out for it just being things that women like. And he's not the creator of this message, he is just the relayer of this message, but still, it's the lack of critical thinking in the relaying of this term and the way it was popularized that makes it dangerous. Because, after that, it's really funny, because after that, he was like, oh, here's, men can be Chugi too, it applies to all genders. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, and you know that. And you know that that's a lie. Because what happened was, this is my theory. You can go and read, I'll link all the articles below. You can go and read the New York Times article. I think like a bunch of major news publications have stuff on it now. But basically, what I think happened was the original creator, she made a TikTok. She's not TikTok famous. I think she probably didn't expect it to get as big as it did. And that's fine. And I think she was saying it was like a term her and her friends use. And that, that's fine. Within friend groups, things happen. People want to, use terms for certain things. That's totally fine and that's your business. But I think when it got to the internet, she didn't expect it to get that big. And once it started to get this big, I think here's what happened. I think she started to change the definition of what it meant to her. And I think everybody else started to change the definition of what they knew it meant. Because the term Chugi so obviously is criticizing women's things. So obviously. What world are we living in? Why do we kid ourselves still? I don't understand why we kid ourselves still. But obviously has misogynistic tendencies. But you know what's not cool anymore? You know what's Chugi? Misogyny. So then what they had to do was reel it in, and they were like, oh, actually it's all genders and all ages. That's ridiculous because you're talking about trends which are dependent on time. And now you're saying it's any age? That's not how things work. But, so I made a TikTok. I stitched Rod. I'll put it here.
So this week, Gen Z coined a new phrase geared towards millennials, and it's called Chugi.
I would argue that it's not a phrase that came from Gen Z to millennials, but actually from white girls to other white girls. This is a thought I've been trying to articulate for a while, so let's see where it gets me. I find it so interesting to be sitting back watching white women micromanage what makes other white women cool in a way that women of color don't do and don't have to do. And it's something to do with white girls get made fun of so much for just doing what they want to do. So you've developed a system of doing the thing that you want to do, and then somebody makes fun of it, and then you all find a new trend, and then somebody makes fun of that trend, and then you all find a new trend. You don't have to be doing that. Like, you don't have to be criticizing and making fun of each other the way you do. I just want you to know that, and it seems kind of frivolous on my end to be seeing you call each other Chugi and cringy and no middle parts and no jeans. Just let each other live, bro. I made that TikTok, and I made a series of TikToks, actually, on the concept of Chugi. If you want to go watch. Why did I just say stream? Like I'm an artist on Spotify? No. So now this podcast that I listen to, called Be There in 5. Her name is Kate Kennedy. I found her through Girls Gotta Eat, which is another good podcast if you are looking for podcasts. She DM'd me the other day, which is really cool, because like I knew who she was. And she was talking to me like I didn't know who she was, and I was like, I know who you are. But she DM'd me asking me if she could reference my TikTok, the one that I stitched Rod, and talk about and a bunch of the TikToks I made actually she ended up referencing. But she just wanted to use my TikTok content as reference in her podcast because she was doing a deep dive on Chugi. And so I listened to the entire podcast, and she made some amazing points. And she really, because the thing is, whenever people are saying, Chugi applies to all genders and it's not internalized misogyny, how could it be internalized misogyny? That doesn't happen around here. I am not an internalized misogynist. Yes, you are. We all are. Can we just get a grip? Can we just realize it's in all of us? Why are we still kidding? Why are we still playing pretend like we don't live in the world we live in? Obviously. Anyways, we lack critical thinking and nuance. When we get into oh no, there's no internalized misogyny here. Kate is nuance central and critical thinking central. She does her research. She went to Google Trends. She also I didn't know this about her, but she was saying in the podcast she used to be like a trends and data research analyzer, interpreter kind of person for brands. So she's actually like kind of the best person to be talking about this. But so she went to Google Trends and she analyzed like the things that they were saying were Chugi for women versus the things that they said were Chugi for men. Like when these news publications were doing it and when everybody was doing it and trying to make it seem like it's gender neutral and they were throwing in men's things just to make it seem like it was gender neutral. But she brought up a really great point that it doesn't work the same for men because men's trends don't work the same. And there's such a quick turnaround for women's trends and men don't have that. And so she went to Google Trends and she literally compared like, I'm not sure if these were the exact two she compared, but it was like infinity scarf versus polo shirt. Infinity scarf, you see a massive incline all at once and then a decline, because that is what a trend is. For men's polos, it's a flat line. That's not a trend. That's a men's shirt. And men don't operate in the same way as women regarding trends because they weren't socialized to and they weren't made fun of for liking what they liked, so they had to find something else that they like. It's not applicable to men because men don't work this way. Men's consumerism, men's consumerism doesn't work in the same way as women's. Women consume way more than men because of this trend thing. And we're trying to throw in, it's apples to oranges. We're trying to throw in men to make it seem like it's not a sexist term and be like, polos or like boat shoes. These are just things that men wear. It's not a trend for them. You know what I mean? And you can say it's basic, but men don't care because they're not valued on what they're wearing in the same way that women are. So it's completely unapplicable. And it's really hilarious to me that the whole reason people tried to make such a broad definition of Chugi is because misogyny is Chugi. And they realized that Chugi had internalized misogyny, so then they had to add things onto it that didn't end up making any sense. Because you can't say, Chugi is about somebody who's behind, a little out of date, but then open it up to all ages and time. Like, it doesn't make sense. That's not how trends work. Are you telling me a baby is behind the times? Goodbye. And truthfully, I found that cover up, reel it in, to be kind of just embarrassing for everybody who tried to do that. We see that it's misogynistic. We've been seeing, and you can cover it up and say any age, any gender. I can still see through it to the point, which is you hate women who like things. I can see the point. You can dance in front of the point. You can put on a dress. You can put a dress on a pig to dance in front of the point. I can still see the point behind the dancing pig. Boat shoes and polo shirts are the dancing pig. That's embarrassing. But the way they took this term and tried to make it like it was just a style thing, my whole thing is, where do you think the concept of women being valued on their style came from? And we saw a similar thing with the Gen Z millennial, no side parts, no skinny jeans. And then the people who said that being like, it's about style. Like, I'm not just gonna pretend that these people are stylish when they're not. This isn't internalized misogyny. It's about style. You can think it's about style, and it can be about style, but it can also be internalized misogyny. It's a both and situation. If you're ever putting intrinsic value on something a woman consumes, it's internalized misogyny, because you're talking about value based on presentation and consumerism. I'm just not sure why we continuously repackage and rebrand our internalized misogyny. It's in a bad job, doing a bad job of it too. Like, to me, it's very clear these are the same things, but I just think we need to stop creating words like that. But back to Kate's podcast, back to Be There in 5, another point she brought up that was really interesting was she was talking about how a lot of like the reason why millennials like what they like or like to wear what they wear kind of thing has a lot to do with how they were brought up, had a lot to do with the recession, had a lot to do with, you know, the fact that things used to work different. Like, we don't understand the way things used to work in like the 2010s when like a lot of things that are being called Chugi now came out. We were, I mean, I'm talking about like people who are Gen Z, we were very young. And we weren't really in charge of our style at that point. Like, my mom was still buying my clothes, you know what I mean? But Kate gave me the perspective of like, before there were bloggers and before there were like fashion bloggers and Instagram and all this stuff, it wasn't, clothing and style wasn't accessible in the same way that we have it now. So it wasn't like you can follow your favorite fashion blogger and just, you know, literally click on the picture and buy what she's wearing. It didn't used to be like that. It used to be like things would hit the market. This is still me completely referencing Be There in 5. This is not my own knowledge. She was saying it used to be like things would go out like on the big market at like high prices. Because one of the things on the list of Chugi apparently was Gucci belts. So she was using the example of Gucci belts to say things hit at a really high price. And by the time there was enough dupes or remakes or whatever to hit like the middle market, people who could actually afford it started wearing it, then it's not cool anymore to the people up here. And that is not a cycle we want to adhere to. Like, that is classism. And the idea of Chugi, like, saying that these things that are now older and like slightly have gone down a tier because of the time that's passed since they first hit the market at their most expensive rate that no one could afford, and now you aren't allowed to get it at an affordable price. You just can't have it because you're Chugi, and that's not cool and you're trying too hard. Is that the message we want to be putting into the world in 2021? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And another thing that came up for me, somebody commented on my TikTok. They were saying, I'm all for Chugi. Let the white girls be Chugi so that they don't appropriate Black culture. That's a great point, because I guess my question is, what do you expect women on a large scale, white women on a large scale, to be wearing? Because not everybody is gonna be thrifting. Like, you can want that, but not everybody's gonna be thrifting. And people need to, get clothes in an accessible way that's easy for them. So yes, a lot of people are gonna end up with the same things. And does that have to be bad? No, because the opposite is cultural appropriation, box braids, long ass acrylic nails, and a black scent. So pick a style, and as long as you don't culturally appropriate, I have no problem with it. And the other thing that I think is interesting, because the original TikTok that I stitched with Rod, he was saying, Gen Z has come up with a new term for millennials. And I was like, no. This isn't Gen Z to millennial generational bullshit. This is white girl on white girl crime. This is white girl on white girl crime, and you can't deny it. Do you know how I know? I'm immune to Chugi. And I'm gonna tell you a story to represent how I'm immune to Chugi. So I'm a dancer, and there was a point in dance where all you would wear was black clothing. Like 100% of the time, you just had to be wearing black head to toe. black socks, black leggings, or some sort of black pant, black short, and some sort of black shirt. And so whenever I saw a black shirt and it was soft and looked like it was gonna be easy to move in and dance in, I would buy it. I didn't really care what was on it. I really didn't care. It was about function, not style. And on the shirt, it said like pumpkin spice lattes, fall, walks in the rain, something like that. Something that people now would 110% consider cheugy. And I remember when I wore it in university, and my friends would comment on it and they'd be like, ha ha ha, that's so ironic. Did you buy that ironically? And I was like, no, it's just black. And they were like, ha, that's so funny because that's really off-brand for you. Like, you would never wear that. And I was like, well, I'm wearing it. And that just goes to show, like, cheugy, I'm immune to cheugy. I wear cheugy, people think it's ironic. I'm not cheugy. I can't be cheugy because cheugy belongs to white women. Cheugy is white on white crime. Cheugy is a white woman's game. Stop saying it's generational bullshit. No, it's not. It simply isn't. Because if the shirt I was wearing was on a white girl, well, now she's cheugy. But it's on me. Oh, Kira's funny. That's ironic. So then, does cheugy really exist? Do you know what I mean? If it's so contextual and so specific to white women, why are we pretending like it applies to everybody? It simply doesn't apply to some of us, which means it's not generational at all. If it's not generational and it doesn't apply to certain women and it doesn't apply to men, then it's internalized misogyny. It's white girl and white girl crime. White girl and white girl crime is more often than not internalized misogyny. Am I wrong? The other reason why cheugy is so interesting to me to watch is because women of color don't really care if somebody's wearing something cheugy. Like, that has nothing to do with me, and that I'm not bothered by it. Like, I'm just not bothered by it in the same way that white women seem to be bothered by other white women's choices. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, why do you care so much? Do you know what I mean? And I realize that it's because I'm immune. That what I said before, I'm immune to cheuginess or to basicness. We could even just say it's that, because those are really the same thing. They're pretty much interchangeable terms. Like I said, it's been rebranded. But I don't have the fear of somebody calling me basic based on my identity. I don't have the fear of somebody calling me cheugy based on my identity, or like whatever cheugy was, using words to describe cheugy without the words cheugy before cheugy was a term that people used. Did that make sense? I think so. I'm not afraid of that because I'm not a white girl who has always been told she's basic for liking what she likes. And I do have sympathy for white women in that aspect, that I don't have to go through that. And white women get made fun of a lot just for liking whatever they like. Uggs, Starbucks, whatever. Like, they can't like anything without being judged for it. And that's what curates this fear of being called basic. And then so to try and dodge it, instead of recognizing, the whole system of oppression that causes that, to try and dodge it, because that's easier, they will, project it onto someone else. Well, you're not cool. What you're wearing isn't cool. So that they can distance themselves from that kind of white woman and say, I'm the other kind. This is the kind you should make fun of. I'm the other kind. And while I understand what you were trying to do there, the problem is, in a world that is so misogynistic and so ready to weaponize any term that can be used against a woman in a misogynistic way, even if you're on this side of the fence, making up a term or using a term to point to someone on that side of the fence, in a misogynistic world, it's gonna come back to you anyway. Even if it didn't apply to you originally, it'll find a way to apply to you. That's how misogyny works. They don't discriminate. They don't like women, any of them. You need to be careful. You need to be careful with who you point fingers at, because it's always gonna come back to you. What is that thing? What was that thing when we were really young? Like, if you have one finger, it's like a finger analogy or metaphor. If you have one finger pointing at someone else, you have three pointing back to yourself. Is that what it is? I'm like really trying to channel my 5-year-old self. I think it is. I think there's three pointing back at you. So I guess that's kind of relevant here, weirdly. Everything's a double-edged sword. If you're using a term that has the potential to be weaponized in a misogynistic way, best believe it will be. That was Another thing Kate pointed out, she was like, it doesn't even really matter what the original intention of Chugi was. It's going to be used in a misogynistic way if it can be. Because that's the world we live in. So we need to wake up and be really careful with what kind of terms we want to push out onto the internet for everyone to see and use, because it's very likely that it's going to be used to hurt women and make them feel bad for liking what they like. So let's not do that anymore. We don't have to. Isn't that great? After all of this, we can just not do that. We could just not do that anymore, which I thought we had like agreed to do, but I guess not everybody showed up to the meeting where we agreed not to do that because we're still doing it. So let's stop now, for real. Can we for real not do this anymore? Cool, that'd be great. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Chugi, chug. And I will never be saying this word again. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Kira Bria, and listen to my podcast, Mixed Feelings with Kira Bria. And also I teach yoga. I teach yoga classes. I should plug them here. Every Sunday at noon. Well, noon EST, 9 a.m. PST. So if you want to join, just DM me. Cool. Okay. Bye. I'll see you soon.